Now, this was an advertisement in New Orleans about slaves learning to read or learning in general, which the South considered to be wealth. The interesting thing is that I've heard several times that the antebellum South was far more educated and civilized than the North. Now, I'm not surprised because Northerners had bigoted, racist, and ignorant attitude towards black people and the South.
Many of the northern states, which had abolished slavery very gradually, should add, many of the northern states did not let blacks go to school, did not let blacks vote. Several of the Midwestern states would not even let blacks relocate within the state. Iowa, in the middle of the Civil War, has a Black Exclusion Act. Clearly, the northern attitude toward blacks is not. It doesn't have it. It's not taking really the high ground.
What's the Iowa Black Exclusion Act? What was that?
Because in the 1860s, it was to say that blacks could not settle in the state.
Oh, exclusion in that sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's hard to make the case that the North was fighting a crusade of freedom there.
No, I mean you had inability to vote in almost just about all the states. Schools which educated a black student would be closed in the northern states. You know, in the state of New York, if you were a free black, you could vote as could a white, except a white could vote without paying. A free black had to have property worth at least $200 to vote. So you have a number of very systematic differences in their treatment.
We all know slaves were property, and as a business owner, don't you want to maintain or upgrade your property? Well, that's exactly what most slave owners were doing. During slavery in the South, the North had children working in factories, mines, long hours, dangerous conditions, low pay, which caused problems for them emotionally, physically, and also their education suffered. But we never focus on that. I find that fascinating. Even after slavery ended in the South, child labor laws were still a huge problem. The ignorance and depravity was mainly in the North, and most of our information about the South, about black people, is coming from a racist, bigoted, ignorant society. For me and a few other people out there, bells go off, but for everybody else, quote, we're going to believe what the North says about the South and about black people. Like, that doesn't make sense to me, right? If you know them by their fruit, by their actions. And the North was very, very hypocritical. There were definitely slaves who knew how to read, write, and had a lot more education than most Northerners. They would tell us that a few years after the Civil War, a whole bunch of former slaves got into positions of power in the government, state legislatures, etc. They must have had some formal education during the time of slavery in order to get into those positions. Supposedly having no education whatsoever, then in 3 years, they have enough education in order to get into state legislatures? Doesn't make any sense. And if that is the case, then black people are far more brilliant than we give them credit for. Another reason why Northerners did not like Southerners, coupled with the fact that Caucasians and Negroes were getting along a lot better in the South, and also Negroes were a lot smarter on average and a lot more skilled on average than Caucasians because of slavery. Slavery was around for such a long time for a reason. I mean, all of a sudden it's a bad thing, but it was very successful back in the day. Slaves weren't just picking cotton. They were learning trades as well, specialized in various skills. All that deteriorated after slavery. Caucasians did everything they could to undermine black people's education and opportunities. Well, it was a free system, right? They had the freedom to do so.